Hi, this is Dr. Steve from Misericordia University. Welcome to this video technology tutorial.
Let's begin this video tutorial by getting a quick orientation to spreadsheets. How many columns and rows are there? Well, you can navigate around a spreadsheet by using the arrow keys and page up, page down, all the typical ways that you would navigate through any application. In addition to this, if you look at the scroll bars, we can scroll and notice that it only scrolls so far, and you would think that the spreadsheet would be a lot larger than this. And the same thing with the horizontal scroll bar. Well, the situation is that there are a tremendous number of cells present here. And to find that, I'm going to go to a blank column. I'm going to hit the End key followed by the down arrow. It's now jumping me straight to the very bottom of the spreadsheet. So you can see there's over 1 million cells available here. That's a lot. And if I do the same thing, but to go to the right, End and right arrow key, I'm going all the way to the right. So it starts with A, B, C, and then the columns go A, B, A, C, and finally they end up down the road using 3 letters in the columns. If I do Control and Home, I can quickly jump back up to A1 to the home area. While Control Home will quickly take you to cell A1, if I do Control End key, it takes me to the farthest point down that I have typed, which in this spreadsheet is, so far, it's row 100, and it's column K. So I'm going to quickly do Control Home and get back up to the home base to the upper left-hand corner of this spreadsheet. Another very important part of the spreadsheet is the formula bar. The formula bar is located up here. This formula bar will show you in reality what's contained in these cells. And I like to consider these cells as being like windows in a house or a building, because we have curtains and various things to pretty up the way the contents in the window look. So these cells, if you consider them as having curtains or window dressing on the front of them, it'll help us to understand how these cells function a little bit better. Here, if I click in cell B17, I see the number 65. When I look up in the formula bar, I see in reality 65 has indeed been typed in there and is contained in there. The next cell over, C17, has 32.00. That's a little window dressing. That's like drapery. So I look up here in the formula bar, I find in reality it's 32 and not 32.00. The .00 is a little window dressing. 97 is typed, appears in this next cell. When I look up in the formula bar, I see a formula of B17 plus C17, a little bit of math going on there. If I look at cell E17, I find it once again says 97. When I look up in the formula bar, I see that I didn't type E97. Instead, I have a function there, which is another form of math going on, and so on with the other cells that are here. Now, how do I enter data into a cell? To enter data into a cell, what I do is select a cell with the mouse, simply type something. I can type numbers and hit enter, or I can type text and I can hit enter, or I can press an arrow key or simply select another cell with the mouse. How do I edit the contents of a cell? To edit, I can do one of 2 things. If I find an error, for example, in a cell, I can double-click that cell, and I'm directly in it. For example, Frank's is incorrect. I'll backspace, and I'll hit enter. Another method for editing the contents of a cell, which works especially well if you have something very long included inside that cell, is to click on the cell and once again go up to the formula bar. I go into the formula bar, now I've got this whole area available to me in order to make changes, in case I'm working with a large formula or function or a long bit of text in there. And I can hit enter. Now, if I went to make a change and I made a mistake, and I see it at this point, I can always hit the escape key, and that will remove me and abort that particular action that I'm doing. How do I delete the contents of a cell? Well, just like in Word and other programs, I would simply highlight. So I'm clicking in the middle of a cell. Notice that I'm getting a white cross or plus sign. After I highlight, I can simply hit the delete key in order to remove the content. So I'm selecting and I'm hitting the delete key. Now a shortcut you can use if you're working with a series is called data fill. And the way you work with this is, if you're working with something like Monday or January or a numeric series, simply click on a cell. Notice that in the lower right-hand corner of every cell, we have a little fill handle. Notice when I place my cursor right over that fill handle, I get a black plus sign. Click at this point and drag. I could drag down or across. Notice, hey, that's cool. It's filling in a series for me. So if I'm setting up a spreadsheet with attendance or other materials for my students, and I've got like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of material in there, look how I can simply create this very quickly. One trick, if I'm going to work with a series that's a numeric series, how does the computer know what kind of series I want to follow? Like to us logically, if I type a 1 and I drag this down, I would expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't work. So I'm going to Control Z and undo this. Here's a little trick that you can use. If I type a 1 followed by a 2 and now click and highlight both of those, notice there's one highlight around this whole area plus one fill handle. Drag that down. Oh, that's going to work fine. The reason why the computer does that is, how does it know what number you're going to do next? What if I do 10 followed by 15? Now I'll just highlight and I can drag. And just realize you can also do any of these fill handles, drag them across. Let's say I'm going to count by -2. So I'll do 2 followed by a 0. Simply highlight both of these and I can now drag across, and indeed it was counting by -2. I'm going to click on my second tab on the bottom to move to a second worksheet. Working with columns and row sizes is really easy. For example, here if I wanted to increase the size of column C, I could simply click in between the border, on the border in between cells C and D up top, and notice I can stretch this out. If I wanted to get a perfectly custom sized cell, I would double click. So double click will give me exactly the right size for anything. It'll fit the longest element of data in that whole column. With rows as well, I can simply drag between the borders of two rows, and I can also double click. To insert or delete columns and rows is really easy. I'm going to click, for example, here on row 23. The whole row is now highlighted. I can now right click and I can say delete, and now it's gone. Now notice, you would think that maybe there would be no 23 left, but it simply pushes them together. Likewise, if I click on a row, on the number of the row, and I right click, I can say insert, and now everything is pushed down and there's a new row 23. The same thing I can do with columns. If I click on column B, the entire column is highlighted. I can simply right click and say delete. Now if I make a mistake, I can always undo. I'm going to do Control Z right now to undo that operation. And finally I can add something else in by clicking on the column name, in this case B, and saying insert. Now everything is pushed over, and now we have a new column B. In our next video tutorial, let's take a look at some basic formatting issues.